Good morning. It's Monday, August 30th, and it's been 10 months since we had the last election. 10 months since Trump lost the presidential election. And what I'm about to tell you is a sorry story. It's a terrible situation in the United States. And we should not be a proud country if we listen to these stories and these things that are happening. Election workers around the country are having their lives threatened by many who still believe that the election was rigged, and by Trump still insisting that he lost the election because of fraud. Let me tell you a couple of things that happened during the aftermath of the election. Tina Barton, who was in her 8th year as the clerk in Rochester Hills, a city of 75,000 people in southeastern Michigan, where one of her many responsibilities was administering of elections. And on November 3rd, the evening of the election, she realized that some absentee ballots had not been included. So she resubmitted them by error, because in their confusion, she thought they hadn't been submitted, but they had been submitted. So they were resubmitted, but she caught the error and she removed it. And what happened later was that Ronna McDonald, the chair of the Republican National Committee, and a good friend of Tina Barton, who was also a Republican, held a press conference in Bloomfield Hills. And Barton had been appointed by a nonpartisan city council, even though she was a Republican. And she considered McDaniel an ally, because they were both Republicans. But McDaniel sold her down the river, so to speak. She falsely claimed that 2,000 votes for Trump had gone to Biden. She had no basis, no clue, no nothing to make that statement. But she went ahead and did it anyhow. A complete mischaracterization of the facts. And what do you think happened? Barton started receiving death threats that were left on her office phone and via Facebook Messenger. And she was very upset because someone said she deserved a knife in the throat and that you should be executed and that we are going to F up your family. Now, this is just one example of many incidents that went on and are still going on around the country. Right now, in a recent survey commissioned by the Brennan Center for Justice, it was found that 1 in 3 election officials now feel unsafe doing their jobs. And this was not because they just feel unsafe. They are citing many threats to their lives. More than half of these people said that the misinformation circulating on social media made their jobs more dangerous. It's no accident that in 2021, American democracy finds itself under attack, and elections officials are the prime targets in these attacks. Facts have not gone unnoticed by the Department of Justice and the FBI, which have launched a task force, a joint task force, to deal with the threats to election workers. And they promise to promptly prosecute offenders to protect the rights of the American voters and to punish those who engage in criminal behavior. And they want to send an unmistakable message that such conduct would not be tolerated. And among the groups that have been threatening the election workers is QAnon and Stop the Steal. Those extremist organizations are targeting election officials. And we know that across the country, Republican state lawmakers have been proposing and passing legislation to penalize election administrators and poll workers with sizable fines and criminal prosecution for failing to adhere to the new spurious protocols. In Florida, if an election official leaves their ballot box to go take a leak or something, right, they can now be slapped with a $25,000 fine. This is getting crazy. It's getting totally out of hand. So around the country, election officials and election administrators say they are being exhausted and traumatized. Some have even gone into therapy. Some have had to put their children in therapy. And now all this legislation that's being put forth in some states, attaching penalties that can be financial or jail time or whatever, is going to cause a lot of administrators, a lot of election administrators who haven't already walked away, to stop and pause and reconsider and say, why the fuck do I need to take this shit when I am trying to do a great job for this country? And believe me, we don't want this mass exit of experienced administrators to start leaving their jobs, and then they get replaced by novices, probably replaced by inexperienced people who are probably partisan, not the nonpartisan group that we saw in the last election. And that's all we need, is partisan election officials. Then this country will really be in trouble. We're in trouble now, but we will really be in trouble if we replace many of these fine election officials. And you could see by the laws that were passed in states like Georgia, where the state legislatures are taking over the officiating of election results. And they are capable of overturning the election. This is not the way this country should be running. In Arizona, the GOP-controlled legislature is aiming to strip the Democratic Secretary of State of her authority to defend election results and lawsuits. In Kansas, the legislature has enacted a power grab from election officials. Ben Ginsburg, a Republican and a leading expert in election law and election processes, and Bob Bauer, a Democrat of similar stature, wrote, by subjecting them to invasive, politically motivated control by a state legislative majority, these provisions shift the last word in elections from the pros to the politicians. This is a serious attack on the crucial norm that our elections should be run on a professional, nonpartisan basis. And it is deeply wrong. And we in this country better stop this shit, or we are going to go downhill faster than we saw in the last 4 years. And I can go on and cite many other examples, but I think I've used up my time this morning. So I will leave you with this. Our election situation is in dire straits. And when all these laws go into effect, we will see the results, and they will not be happy for us. They will not be fair. They will not be democratic. They will be a disaster. So that's what I see in the future, and we'll find out for sure in 2022. So I leave you with that this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.